What does it mean to be a human? Is it the people we interact with, the choices that we make, or just our ability to solve problems? How much of your humanity are you willing to give up to become the better you? These are the questions posed by Prey, an immersive horror sim by Arcane Studios that seeks to mix their unique approach to gameplay with just a dab of sci-fi philosophy. It's shooting for the stars, but does Prey deliver, or is it just lost in space?
You're not going to like what I have to say next.
The setup of Prey sees you donning the spacesuit of Morgan Yu, a brilliant scientist and vice president of Transtar Industries, a research and development firm situated on Talos Station orbiting Earth. Together with your brother Alex, you've been working on a host of scientific advancements, such as matter recreators, advanced weapons tech, and most importantly, the Neuromod, an injectable modification to instantly grant special abilities. You know the story by now. Shortly after starting, something goes horribly wrong, and now it's up to you to fix everything. Prey doesn't exactly win points for originality, but the change up here is how you want to go about your task. There are a few different paths to go down in this game, from helping your brother save the station, to working out how to destroy it, to killing everybody on board and just saving yourself. There are no wrong answers in Prey, just alternatives you maybe haven't considered yet.
Listen, just be yourself. I'll see you after.
The writing itself is fairly strong. There's a small core cast of characters, each given just enough depth to be memorable, and side quests will often have you finding out just a little bit more backstory, even if the character you're following died a long time ago. It's compelling stuff, and helping people feels rewarding as you slowly learn more about both Talos and its employees. There's a lot of world building going on here too. Talos becomes its own sort of character, with nearly endless stories to tell. Arcane have always been good at environmental storytelling, but parts of Prey go above and beyond, with small details like scattered papers on an overworked doctor's desk, or the various states of the crew's bunks, reflecting the people that used them. And there's history here too, stretching back to an alternate timeline where JFK was never assassinated, and the space race played out very differently. This gives the game an excellent sort of retro-futuristic look, as if the technology of the 60s and 70s just never got replaced.
Did you know the human body can survive for 30 minutes without a blood supply? Not really. I made that up. Was that funny? I'm programmed to optimize my bedside manner by trial and error.
Where it affects you is the introduction of the Typhon, the game's primary antagonists. These are shape-shifting, body-stealing, death-spreading aliens that have escaped containment and are wreaking havoc aboard the station. They only come in a few varieties, such as the infamous mimics, which will disguise themselves as objects around the levels, or walkers that will search the player out. Where the real challenge lays, though, is the variance of the Typhon, utilizing different environmental effects like fire or psychic damage. On the harder difficulties, they can become quite challenging, and learning what it takes to bring them down becomes necessary for survival. This brings us to Prey's unique leveling system, the aforementioned Neuromods. These serve as a sort of perk point that can be spent on various abilities, such as dealing more damage with different weapon types, or the ability to pick locks or hack computers, or faster movement speed and double jumping. Shortly into the game, you also unlock Typhon mods, which allow you to research and subsequently equip the powers of the various Typhon subspecies. Cast fire or electricity, stun enemies or possess them, or just fling parts of the environment around as makeshift weapons. These are the often more interesting abilities. The trade-off, though, is that the more Typhon powers you learn, the less human you appear to Talos' security system, adding to your list of foes while you grow more powerful.
Look, I don't know what you're planning, Morgan, but just remember, the only thing that matters is how you treat the people that are still alive.
The depth of customization goes even further with the introduction of different suit mods, and the Psychoscope, a helmet that lets you research enemies and focus your abilities. Harkening back to the old days of Bioshock or System Shock, you can install different modifications that will let you recover health with melee attacks, move faster while sneaking, or detect enemies through walls. With every extra layer, Prey really allows you to specialize, and it heavily encourages multiple playthroughs to try out everything there is. Luckily, playing Prey is a joy too, with some top-notch gameplay. There are bits of Arcane's previous Dishonored games here, with touches of acrobatic sneakery, but Prey lets you really start to use the environment to its fullest. Take one of the game's unique signature weapons, the glue cannon, which fires globs of adhesive everywhere. It can be used to freeze enemies, sure, but you can also build makeshift walkways and platforms to get around and find secrets. One of the abilities that you can learn is transforming yourself into any object, including a small coffee cup that lets you roll right through small openings. It's a level of interactivity not found in many other games. Navigating Talos becomes the game's biggest challenge, and it's usually the most fun too. There's no fast travel option, the game world just isn't that big, but as you go along you'll find different ways to move through the station quicker. There are airlocks all over the place, so to avoid a confrontation you can just go for a short space walk outside and get a view of the whole station. There are internal supply tunnels using zero gravity that run the length of the station that can be used to move around. Or there's the central elevator, which lets you move from deck to deck, though it is somewhat limited. As the game progresses, so too does the Typhon infestation into Talos, so never assume that anywhere you've been is safe forever. There is also combat, and while it is Prey's weakest mechanic, it's also still passable. Shooting just feels sort of okay. It's not too floaty, but it's never very punchy. There's only a small handful of weapons, each with upgrades that can be attached, and you are more than encouraged to play smart, using either the environment to take out enemies or drawing them into traps, or combining your weapons and abilities together. Ostensibly, Prey is also a stealth game, though stealth is mostly just basic line of sight and sound reaction. The Typhon aren't liable to change up their patrols just because you managed to take one out quietly.
Care to elaborate?
Not if I'm going to get my pee-pee slapped.
Worse, I'll dunk you in the eel tank.
If you like Prey's campaign, and I certainly do, there's a lot more fun to be had in the expansion pack Moon Crash. Were it not so short, this would probably be the game at its absolute finest, taking everything great about the vanilla experience and cranking it up to 11. Taking place in a simulation of another TranStar base on Earth's moon, Typhon have also escaped, and you have to select one of 5 characters, each with different abilities and locked upgrade paths representing broadly different ways to play. As these characters, you'll need to escape the moon through a variety of different means, avoiding the Typhon and navigating the station while doing so. Where Moon Crash takes it a bit further is in its unique, almost roguelike setup. As mentioned, everything is in a simulation, but the sim is breaking down, and over time everything gets harder and harder, introducing tougher enemies and more environmental issues. The end goal is to get all 5 characters out, but until the sim resets, every action taken by one character affects the levels for the other 4. This means that weapons and supply drops you pick up when starting out won't be there later on when the sim is more difficult. To further complicate things, some of the escape options require multiple characters each doing something in sequence, so it becomes a game of planning a path perfectly through the levels.
You're right, it does sound weird. But at least now there will be 2 shit-hot aviators who can fly this brickyard.
Actually, you'll be obsolete, because I'll be able to fix them and fly them.
Maybe you'll pick up some of my other charming qualities.
Yeah? Like what?
I shouldn't have to tell you.
There are other minor changes Moon Crash makes for the better. Weapons will now have randomized effects, like electrical dart guns to stun robots or a shotgun that causes fire damage. Status effects, which were also added to the base game, makes staying alive more challenging. Overall, everything in Moon Crash just works to its absolute fullest, and it makes me wish it was released as a standalone game to give people just a tiny taste of what Prey is. Visually, Prey is a great looking game. Like I mentioned, there's this wonderful retro-futuristic look with a lot of wood and polished metal to make the station seem more homey. The detail is what really sells it, with Talos feeling very lived in and evidence of the struggle between the survivors and the Typhon littering the place. Characters have that signature arcane look to them, realistic but very stylized. And the Typhon, while there's not a lot of them, look creepy and unnerving. There's also a great use of lighting, with lights flickering as a visual indicator that a Typhon is near, and the unfiltered light of the sun streaming through windows as the station orbits around. The audio is probably Prey's biggest weak spot. The soundtrack is an absolute standout, with a super atmospheric track courtesy of Mick Gordon, showing a much softer side than his now infamous Doom soundtracks. But sound effects, and especially the voices, are weirdly mixed and oddly weak. Every voice clip especially sounds like it's being delivered through an odd filter. This has happened to me on multiple computers now.
Things. Everyone I worked with.
They're dead, aren't they? I wonder if one of the creatures caused the explosion in fuel storage.
There's also not that much background ambient noise, although you can hear the station pulling itself apart from time to time. Overall, Prey is a wonderful experience, an expert mix of survival horror and immersive simulation. It's a game that begs you to play it over and over, and rewards that persist with new ways to tackle each situation. Moon Crash is also a nearly perfect addition, and together they're just an amazing package. Perfect for any fan of sci-fi horror. This was easily one of my favorite games of 2017, and it remains a favorite of mine in the genre even today. Thank you for watching, and join me next time as I check out a short horror experience and one of the strangest games I've ever played.
Hello, Morgan. Tough day, right? If I'm talking to myself, it must be.